October 2nd, 1717, and I call this meeting to order. Our first business is a report from Selectman John Mason.
Town meeting, a symbol of Massachusetts democracy for centuries.
Present before you Captain John Estabrook, who has agreed to keep school for the town. The school year will begin on the first day of November until the last...
Town meeting has always given people a voice in their government, a way to make themselves heard.
And at the expiration of said term, he'll be paid £15 from the public treasury.
£15?
Order, gentlemen. Matthew Bridge, you have something you wish to say?
Yes, I do.
This film is about these voices. Who do they belong to 300 years ago?
Pounds to teach arithmetic to our children?
And who do they belong to today?
Building a new schoolhouse. I believe this is an expense far beyond our means.
You have a response, Mr. Mason?
As a compromise and to fill our coffers, a scholar who does not yet write or add figures will pay...
In the early 1700s, the voices belonged to white male property owners.
Said term, Captain Estabrook won't pay monies into the town treasury for the town.
African Americans were enslaved throughout most of the colonies, including in Massachusetts. Women could not vote and were barred from most professions. Those without property labored with minimal rights. This was the face of Massachusetts democracy in the early 18th century. But over the next 300 years, this limited idea of who could participate in the democratic process would change dramatically. The textile mills of Lawrence, Massachusetts in the early 1900s. Dangerous working conditions, meager pay, child labor. For immigrant workers here and across the nation, the situation was becoming unbearable.
My name is Camilla Tioli. My family is from Italy, and we came to America because my parents thought they could find good work and make a good life here. I was 13 and going to school when a man came to our house asking how old I was and why wasn't I working in the mills. The man got us some fake documents to show I was 14 and old enough to work. So I stopped going to school and went to work for the American Woolen Company. My parents wanted me to start working to bring more money to the family because we didn't have enough to buy food for all of us. There are 5 of us kids and we live in 2 crowded rooms. Maybe if I brought in more money, we'd be able to have more room. Besides, in Lawrence, most of the girls who were my age worked in the mills. My job at the mill was twisting yarn with a big machine. I was paid $6.55 a week. I worked every day but Sunday, and sometimes they made us come in on Sunday to do extra cleanup work, even though we didn't get paid for it. One day my hair got caught in the twisting machine, and it tore part of my scalp off. I had to be in the hospital for 7 months. A day after I got back, some of the women realized that their pay had been cut. They said, "All out, short pay," and walked out. The next day, more workers left the mill, and I left with them. We picketed outside the factory for days and sang many songs in many different languages. There were a lot of speeches. The women kept saying, "We want bread, but we want roses too." Finally, the strike ended, and we got more pay. After the strike, I earned $7.50 a week, and the hours weren't as long. Things were better.
Because thousands of people, like Camilla Tioli, stood up and made their voices heard, the rights of workers and immigrants expanded throughout the next 100 years. In the early part of the 20th century, women's voices were not heard in American democracy. They did not have the right to vote.
It's June 5th, 1919, and the Senate is about to vote on whether to pass a national amendment to grant women the right to vote. My name is Blanche Ames, and I've been working towards this moment for a long time. It has seemed so obvious to me ever since I was a young girl that women should have the right to vote. All we want is to become full citizens, to have a voice in the issues of the day that concern us. If this amendment passes, we will offer to the world the greatest extension of democracy that has ever been made at one time. 23 million new voters will be created, with the potential to use our vote to improve the lives of women, children, and all Americans. Objections have seemed so trivial, and yet there have been many. Some say that giving women the vote will increase the ignorant vote, but more girls graduate from high school today than boys. Educated women will make thoughtful voters. Others say that suffrage will turn women into men and destroy the family. But granting equal citizenship rights does not mean we'll all become the same. And why does caring about the issues that affect us and our families make us less feminine? This has been a very long fight. Over 40 years ago, this amendment was introduced by Susan B. Anthony, but it was rejected and then ignored for many years. While working for a federal amendment in Congress, we tried to get the states to pass their own amendments. Alas, only a handful of states ever granted women the right to vote. In Massachusetts, a state amendment failed in 1915, but we never gave up. We organized rallies, we wrote thousands of letters, we lobbied politicians. I also had another tool. I wrote political cartoons to get people's attention.
Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the homes shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea.
Finally, the amendment has come up for a vote again.
After 72 years of struggle, women won the right to vote with the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. Blanche Ames and others like her gave women a voice in the democratic process. For African Americans, in the quest for full participation, the 20th century would bring both challenges and progress on a monumental scale. In Massachusetts, as in the rest of the nation, the fight for equal rights took place in the schools, in the courts, on the streets, and in local neighborhoods, like Roxbury in the 1970s.
I'm Otto Snowden, and this is my wife, Muriel. We're social workers, and now we're also community organizers.
In 1949, we started Freedom House in Upper Roxbury because we saw our neighborhood turning into a slum.
Freedom House is a place where people of any race or religion can come together and work to make this neighborhood a better place to live.
And we tried to convince the city of Boston to let the people in our community have a say in how the neighborhood would be redeveloped.
People should be proud of the place they call home. That's why we threw our support behind integrating the Boston Public Schools. This new law requires Boston to fix the racial inequalities in our schools by busing students to neighboring areas. Not everyone's gonna like it, but we think it's the best way to force politicians to pay more attention to every school in Boston, not just those in affluent neighborhoods.
Just like we did at Freedom House, we won't let politicians sweep their responsibilities under the rug. We're gonna make sure that every child gets the kind of education that he or she deserves. Blacks, whites, Christians, Jews, everyone needs to be a part of the fight for equal education.
Workers and immigrants, women, African Americans. Throughout the last 300 years, countless individuals and communities have added their voices to the noisy and vibrant chorus of American democracy. And because of their struggles, the face of American democracy has changed.
On the matter of reconsideration, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Town meeting, early 21st century.
Policy that would be clear. So we were successful in our campaign. We raised approximately $17,000.
I would prefer to see a presentation to the whole council, but here again, the fallback position we need to take into account.
The striving for justice and equality in the Commonwealth continues, and you can be a part of it. History of participation in our always evolving democracy. Let your voice be heard.